This is the Alden Report.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by ConnectionCapital.com. That's ConnectionCapital.com. That's ConnectionCapital.com. You are one connection away from your life changing forever. Have you ever tried to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or even Clubhouse, and you couldn't quite connect with them? That's because the biggest gap in the world is the gap of access. It's not the wealth gap. It's not the credit gap. It's the access gap. ConnectionCapital.com is leveling the playing field, and it's free to join. Visit ConnectionCapital.com, ConnectionCapital.com. Again, it's ConnectionCapital.com. You are one connection away from your life changing forever.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, welcome to another edition of the Alden Report. I tell you, every time I do this opening, I always tell you how excited I am for my next guest. And I am excited because I like meeting interesting people. I like people that are doing interesting things. And I like people that are also changing people's lives. My next guest is a performance coach. He's a keynote speaker. He's a father of three. He's out there motivating people. He's got a bunch of different companies. He's an entrepreneur. And, we were introduced by a mutual friend, and I'm just super excited to have him here. Sometimes I'm tired and I don't feel like doing the Alden Report. I'm just going to be honest with you, but I just know that when I have guests on like Jordan Montgomery, I just know he's going to fire me up. So if he's going to fire me up, I know he's going to fire you up. So this is one of those episodes you're not going to want to miss. Please help me welcome Jordan Montgomery. Jordan, thanks so much for being my guest, man.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on the Alden Report, man. It's a blessing to be here and honor to share a conversation with the brother.
So, I know people who are watching right now, they may already be looking at me saying, okay, what's going on here? We got with upgraded glasses. So I am wearing $17 glasses just for everyone who's watching right now. My 99-cent ones, I've ruined them. I'm going to have to get a couple new pairs. And Jordan and I were joking around a little bit about it before. So Jordan, so you're from Iowa, yes?
I'm from Iowa, that's correct.
All right, man. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you get in? I'm always interested in, how you get into this world of performance, being a performance coach, being a keynote speaker. I've spoke here and there, but not at the level that you've done and some of the stages that some of the people you've shared stages with. How does that happen?
Well, it's a lot of repetition, right? Just like anything else. So it's hard work meets opportunity. I started in the financial services business, grew a business there for many years. And man, I had a mentor by the name of Ben Newman, a great friend of mine who was in that space, is still in that space in a really big way. And we had a conversation once. I was standing on my back deck. I'm like, Ben, I think I could do more of what you do, performance coaching, working with sports teams and athletes and business owners. And he's like, well, you should just start doing it on the side. So I opened this business and started doing it on the side. My wife and I literally like running the business out of my home. And it took about 6 months, Mike, and God opened some doors. We were really blessed to have great people around us, but we replaced the revenue from our financial planning business, which was fairly significant. It was a decade-long, business through coaching, and it just blew up. And I remember looking at my wife one day. I said, babe, I think we got to pursue this full time. I can't continue to hang on to both these things, and it was not healthy for us or for our relationship or our family. So we just dove head first, man, into working with salespeople, leaders, athletes. The business has evolved and expanded since then. And today we serve a few thousand clients. I usually speak a couple times a week. We have an executive coaching program where I coach 25 executive leaders, and then I coach the coach. So I work with our team of 10 partners, and then also still do a lot of mastermind training, group coaching. But it's really just, man, it's pouring into others. It's leading people. It's growing in relationships with people. And God has blessed our path and continues to open doors. So it's been a crazy journey, but that's kind of the short 2-minute version.
Just getting started too, right? So, a bunch of things to unpack there, as people would say. One of the things that I think it was a critical probably moment in your life, which was we decided to make that shift, right? Or that change. Talk a little bit about, the thought process there, because, a lot of entrepreneurs, have that side hustle, kind of like which it was for you, right? And so at what point, what was the tipping point? When did you and your wife finally really feel comfortable that, okay, we can do this. This is something that is sustainable. I'd love to hear about that. Because again, you mentioned your other business was something that it took you 10 years to build.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to note this because, I was building a financial planning business, but I had done a lot of work in the coaching and speaking space inside that industry. So I was already speaking and coaching Mike in that industry for a very long time. So we had built some momentum, we had built some credibility, we had built a lot of relationships. So when I made that pivot, it made it much easier. And I think sometimes we forget that, right? Like the work I do today was really created, 9 years ago or 7 years ago. And it wasn't just created through the wins, it was also created through the losses. So, man, I got punched in the mouth. There's people that told me no. I remember standing on a stage looking like an idiot. I remember giving speeches to, middle school teams and getting zero payment. I did a lot of that stuff for a long time to get to where I'm at today. So the journey wasn't just a 6-month journey. There was a lot of seeds that we planted prior to the pivot. But it was long obedience in the same direction. It was showing up every day and saying, I'm going to do everything that I can to serve these people. And I think when you live in the service mode and you do the right thing and you bring your best to every situation, usually it just kind of works out. And we're fortunate we've had some good people around us and took some lumps early, still taking some lumps today, but having fun doing it.
Yeah, again, really common stuff within the world of entrepreneurship. A lot of stuff that nobody likes to go through, but I haven't met one successful entrepreneur, whatever business you're in, that isn't going to take those lumps, that isn't going to get punched in the mouth, that isn't going to be dealt with kind of those tough moments. So another thing, a lot of again, our demographic are entrepreneurs, business people, speakers like yourself, or wannabe speakers. So you said something interesting too. You spoke to middle schools, and I had a good friend of mine and who's out there or was out there on the speaking circuit. I said, man, like, how do you start? Like, what do you do? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to get out there and start speaking? What sort of steps do they need to take?
Well, the first thing is do it often and do it anywhere, like anywhere, anytime, do it often. People come to me and they'll be like, hey man, I want to speak to this sports team. Could you connect me? Or I want to start speaking, do you have any companies that I could start speaking to? And, I'm happy to make introductions, but you got to remind people like, look, if you want to, number one, work on the craft, and number two, have some credibility, you really got to start working, with different types of people where it's an easy entry point. Now some people have the natural ability just to get up on a stage and address a group of CEOs, but more often than not, to get to that level, you've got to start somewhere. And I think people forget, like, people see me with CEOs or with athletes and they forget that, like, again, 10 years ago, I was spending time with middle school kids, and not just speaking, like I would play dodgeball. Like I remember this one event, I had this, it was a basketball team, a middle school basketball team. And like they were playing dodgeball. And so I walked in the gym, like I played dodgeball with 6th grade kids and gave a speech, it was probably 15 minutes, like the least fancy thing that a keynote speaker could do. And it was a lot of that type of stuff, right? Where you're living in the service mode, you're giving stuff away, but you're working on your craft. And every single time I gave a talk, I would get better, right? I would pick something up. I would subtract, I would add, I would tweak. And I just believe, man, repetition is the mother of learning. And what's common sense is not always common practice. And so for anybody that wants to get into speaking, like go serve the high school team, serve the middle school team, do stuff for free, give it away, speak anytime, anywhere, do it often. And over time, you'll grow in terms of your opportunity. But I think a lot of people, Mike, aren't willing to humble themselves to be in those environments. But if you really want to be great and you really want to have some credibility and work on your craft, I think you got to start there.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's sound advice that you just gave, and you're right. I mean, like anything else in life, you got to start somewhere. You usually got to start at the bottom, no matter how successful you are in whatever line that you're in. If you want to get out there and try something new, you got to start at the bottom. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to do the work, right? I mean, you said it. Yeah.
It's just like anything else, right? I mean, to your point, you got to step into the pain of being less than excellent. And again, some people have that natural ability, or maybe they've pivoted from a business where they had credibility, so all of a sudden they can step into the arena and speak. But more often than not, it takes doing simple things really well for an extended period of time. And if you want to speak, again, I just say jump into those environments with enthusiasm, like get excited about it. Be happy that you're there. Be proud that you're there. You're going to serve those people, whether it's a 6th grade basketball team or a group of CEOs. Like, jump into that environment with enthusiasm, give those people everything you've got. And over time, your opportunity will increase and grow.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. In a second, I want to talk to you a little bit more about, kind of what is your, I guess, wheelhouse, so to speak. Is there one particular thing that you like? You're a performance coach. Is it athletes? Is it CEOs? Is it all? We'll talk about that in just a second. We're on with Jordan Montgomery. He is a performance coach, a keynote speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He's a dad of 3. We haven't got into that stuff yet. And, you can just tell just by looking at him and just listening to his voice, he's just a good dude. And that's why he's here today. And he's doing good things. And that's, again, why we have people like Jordan on the Alden Report. If you'd like some more information about Jordan, you can go to montgomerycompanies.com. You can also find him on Instagram. I think he's got like almost 70,000 followers on Instagram. It's at Jordan Montgomery. He's pretty active there. He's also on Twitter, JM Montgomery Co. But if you really want to connect with him, he says go to his Instagram and check him out at Jordan Montgomery. So tell us a little bit about, you'd mentioned athletes, and, people always talk about the value of a coach in the athletic world. But then I feel like, and I don't know if you agree or not, but I feel like there's a lot of resistance to getting a coach in like your personal life or like your business life. What's your take on that? And then again, kind of what do you like doing the most? Is it athletes? Is it CEOs, or is it both? I don't know.
Well, I think somebody told me early on, when I was considering getting a coach, Mike, they said, having a coach and getting coached is all about hearing what you don't want to hear, seeing what you don't want to see, to become the person you've always wanted to become. And that's really what it's about, is somebody who's willing to go deep with you, somebody who understands you, but also somebody who's willing to give you the truth. And I spent a lot of my time being a truth teller and calling people upward and holding people accountable. And, we're working on the daily process. We're working on developing habits. We're working on small tweaks and pivots that allow people to live into the person that God created them to be. So I've always had a coach. I remember back in the early stage journey, I was 22 years old. I started working with a guy named Hal Walter. And literally, I still use stuff today that Hal taught me 11 years ago. Still use it, and so you get something from everyone. I think you should have multiple coaches. I think you should have added perspective from multiple people that come from different backgrounds with different areas of expertise. I think the average Olympic athlete has 7 different coaches. So like if you want to be great, I think you got to get feedback. You got to have people that look out for you, who are on the journey with you, who are supporting you. And for me, man, it's just been an evolution, right? I mean, I got coached for a long time. I continue to get coached today. I am a coach. And so I'm having conversations all day, every day about growth and development. And, one of my favorite quotes, Nick Saban says this. He says, average players want to be left alone. Good players want to be coached. Great players want the truth. And if you want the truth, you got to get a coach.
That's pretty powerful. But I think I might have to steal that one. We're gonna have to transcribe that one. I'm gonna put that on Instagram somewhere. I'm gonna push out a meme. I'm just gonna change the world with that quote. So what do you say to people though who are they're financially strapped, right? So they just can't necessarily afford someone like you to work one-on-one. What should they do? Where should they go to essentially get coached for free? Because just some people just can't afford it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't feel like you're getting coached, you're doing something wrong. In today's world, there is so much available to us through social media, through YouTube, through the internet. I think 2 of my coaches are John Maxwell and Ed Milet. I don't know Ed, I don't know John, but they've taught me a lot from afar, and I could go down the list, right? Robin Sharma, Brene Brown. I've just learned from a lot of people from afar because all the content's out there. Now, maybe you don't have the relationship, but I can get their energy, their wisdom, their tactics, their principles, and I want to mimic the master, and I can do that from afar. But the other thing I'd say from a relational standpoint, Mike, that people don't do enough of is they don't really chase and pursue people. And if they do chase and pursue people, they do it the wrong way. And I did it the wrong way. At a young age, I was asking people stuff like, hey, can I pick your brain? Well, never in the history of all time has "can I pick your brain" been a great question, right? It's a shitty question. And I
like the question. All right. So tell me what I should be saying.
Yeah. So it's a self-interested question, right? It's like, hey, let me just take from you. I haven't earned your trust. We have zero relationship, but let me just take from you. The better question, framed after you've provided value, is I would love to learn from you. If I'd be willing, or if you'd be willing, could we tie up some time together? But there's some steps prior to that, right? So here's what I would do for anybody listening. If you're like, hey, I would love to have some top thought leaders as mentors. I'd love to grow in relationships with people that could coach me out of an authentic friendship. So I'm not paying for it. Maybe I don't have the resources for it, but I could get time with Mike, or I could get time with some of these other leaders that I know that I really enjoy listening to and learning from.
Now,
So
before you give those tips and tricks, I will say in full disclosure that I am writing a book called Connection Capital, and we also have a program along with that as well. So if you're listening right now and you know anything about Connection Capital and what we're doing here, this is going to one of those things you might want to pause it. You might want to slow down. You might want to really listen and write this stuff down, because this is the very essence of what we talk about in Connection Capital. All right, go.
yeah, so like for somebody listening today, right? Prime example. Let's say, Mike, you're a guy that I would love to learn from. And I'm like, man, I need to get Mike's time, but I don't really know how. Okay, I could take one of two approaches. I could say, hey, Mike, I listened to your podcast. Love what you're doing. Can I pick your brain? Okay. And you might respond to that. You might give that person time. That's, again, like that might work. I don't think it works as well. Here's the better approach. Hey, Mike, I've listened to 3 of your episodes. Here are 3 of my favorite. These are the things that I took away. And here's the things that I've been applying in my life from what you teach and from what's in your books. You know, these are the 3 things. I've implemented these 3 things, and it's made a really significant difference in my business and my life. And I just wanted to reach out to say, thank you. You've made a difference. You know, I would be so honored if you'd be willing to spend 15 minutes with me. And I promise you 2 things. I'll come prepared and I'll pay it forward. Also, I want to give you the permission to say, no, I know you're a busy guy. If you don't have time, I totally understand. I'm in your corner always. I love your work and I appreciate what you stand for. Okay, if somebody comes with that spirit and that energy and a heart full of gratitude, you're way more likely to say yes. And not only are you more likely to say yes, you're more likely to walk into that conversation with better energy, more prepared to engage. Because you know that person is going to do something with the information that you give them. And that's the difference, right? So you could do it one of 2 ways. I would just prefer to do the latter.
Yeah, no, I think that's really sound advice as well. You know, again, we talk a lot about, you know, people use the term, you know, your net worth is your network. I think it's more than that, right? I think it's kind of what you were talking about too. It's having a true relationship with people and a true connection with people. And I do like that approach, because I think you would agree, just based off of what you said, that most people actually like to help others, even if they're competitors, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, like it's flattering, right? If somebody reaches out and says, I follow you, I enjoy your content, I've been learning from you, like, you know, I mean, that's a good thing. You know, I think people want to hear that.
Now, earlier you talked about essentially you kind of going down the path of habits in doing things, you know, to grow. What sort of habits do you find are easy to implement on a daily basis to help with people's mental state? I think we're towards the end of Mental Health Awareness Month, and you know, it's obviously right now and coming out of COVID, a lot of people are still struggling. What sort of things do you do to maintain that positive energy that you'd mentioned earlier?
One thing that I do, Mike, is I pay attention to triggers, and I haven't always, but I've really started to pay more attention to it lately, especially in this COVID season. So, you know, songs are triggers, right? Certain places are triggers. People are triggers. You know, you can hear a certain song and it just snaps you back to a certain place, or it makes you feel a certain way. You know, you visit a certain place and it makes you feel a certain way. I think people are the same way. People are triggers, and they could trigger you for good, but they could also trigger you in the opposite direction, right? So like literally I've got people that if they call me and I see their name on my phone, I start thinking good thoughts, right? It raises my energy. Like I feel a certain way. Conversely, there's certain people that if they call me, I immediately feel stressed out, right? I immediately get anxious.
Yeah.
And
What do
all
we
of
do?
that
What do we
stuff,
do about those people, Jordan? How do we get rid of those people?
well, I don't think it's, you know, I don't think it's like complete subtraction, right? Like I would never advocate for just like dropping your friends. And listen, I mean, dude, here's the deal. Like I have buddies that I grew up with that I love dearly. Like they are some of my, like, I love them, like my favorite people. But if they always want to talk about the past and they want to complain and be negative and they're not talking about things in the future, they're not really abundant, they want to hang out with the same people and do the same things, like I'm probably not going to add more space for them in my life. I'm going to still spend time with them and let them know that I love them. But I might reduce my proximity. Ed Milet said it this way: proximity is power, right? The people in closest proximity to you have the greatest influence over you. And so I'm not saying stop hanging out with those people, but you might need to reduce the proximity that those people have to you. And it's probably more about addition than it is subtraction. So for somebody listening, I'd be thinking more about, who do I need to include in my world? Who do I need to reach out to that would trigger me in the right direction? So I think triggers is a big deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think a lot of people, you touched upon it earlier, as far as coaches, the people that, that don't want to be coached are the ones that aren't going to really kind of grow and be successful. And I think another big issue for people is their lack of self-awareness, and their inability to really kind of be honest with themselves about some of the things that they may be doing that are essentially self-sabotaging, right? We talk a lot about habits, and it's a great book, right? The Power of Habit. There's a lot of great habit type books out there. What about like a ritual? Because Tony Robbins, talks about, he wakes up in the morning and for 3 minutes he talks about the things that he's grateful for, and I meditate every morning. Actually, I've been a practitioner of TM for years, but I just changed it up to oh, that's right. I forgot you're in Iowa too, which is a big TM. I changed it up where it's the first thing I'm doing in the morning now. So I'm meditating as soon as I wake up, and then I'm reading before I start my day. I've never done that before. What are some things that you do to kind of get your day started and put it in the right direction?
Yeah, similar process, Mike. And I'm not perfect. I'd love to say I do this every day.
Hold on. Well, what? You know what? I'm sorry. We're gonna have to end this episode. I thought you were perfect. You were presented to me as the perfect human being. I'm like I said to you, the first thing I said to him, if you watch it, I said, "Man, you're a good looking dude." He gave it back to me because he had to, because it's like, what else? Oh, that's weird, right? So you're not perfect. All right. Well, okay. So just so we're aware, he's not perfect. All right.
Well, listen. But here's why I say that. Okay, here's why I say that, because this is what happens in our world, and you know this, right? It especially happens in the personal development space.
Sure.
People get on a podcast, or they write a book, or they give a speech, and it's like, here's everything that I do, and I do this every day. This is my routine. This is my ritual, and it comes across like I do this all the time, and it's 110%, and I never make mistakes, and it's just BS. Like I just hate that, right? So right. I'm going to be real about it and say that, hey, a lot of times I do this, and sometimes I don't. And if you're somebody that struggles, then great, you're like everybody else, right? So we're not seeking perfection, but we are seeking growth. And if I'm seeking growth, it means that in the early morning hours, I'm trying to operate first in my time with my maker. So I've got quiet time in prayer. I'm trying to still myself and my thoughts. And then shortly after that, man, I dive into strategy. So I'm thinking about the day. My mind is clear. Social media is not firing. My phone's not blowing up. Nobody's calling me. Nobody's sending emails. So we call this the undistracted hours. Between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. is where I get a lot of work done. And I get work done because my kids aren't, after me. Again, my phone's not blowing up. Nothing's on TV. There's no game to watch. And so I can really get focused from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. So for me, like, I know that if I have that window and I'm focused in that window, my day is going to be really productive. Almost always. There's very few days where I operate in the undistracted hours and I'm really productive, where the rest of the day isn't really solid. Conversely, if I don't get that, if I, sleep past the alarm clock, if something interrupts that time, I won't be as productive the rest of the day. And that's just a fact. So I think Vince Lombardi said the will to prepare has to be stronger than the will to win. And this is all about preparation, right? It's the way that you step into your day. And so for me, that's been one of the most important rituals.
Yeah, again, a very common theme that I hear with successful people. And like you said, I thought you were perfect, but apparently you're not. Like, nobody's perfect. And I do appreciate the authenticity and the honesty there, because when you look at when in this Instagram world that we're in and social media and the voyeuristic world that we're in, we see I mean, I think when a lot of people, when they see, Ed Milet's house or whatever, or what he's doing, or they'll see some of these other guys out there doing these big things, they don't understand that, one, they've, worked really hard to kind of get there. But a lot of times the successful people are setting themselves up for success, right? And then whether that's on a daily basis, weekly basis, but yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out. Now, but I also want to ask you about those days where you don't do what you're supposed to do. What happens in those moments? Because there are days where I don't see TM. You're supposed to meditate 20 minutes twice a day. I don't do that every day. What happens on the day that you don't do that? Do you beat yourself up about it? Do you fall off the wagon and just spirals out of control? What happens?
Well, I try to center myself by the next right thing, right? The next move. So, I think one of the reasons we get sideways emotionally and mentally is we're either thinking too far in the future or we're thinking too far in the past. If we're thinking in the past, it causes anxiety. If we're thinking in the future, it causes fear. And I think if we want to really be productive in any given day, you got to really think about the moment right in front of you. So the most important decision is the next decision. One of our mantras is the next 12 hours. I'm going to control the next 12 hours in front of my face. I can't control tomorrow. Tomorrow's not here. Yesterday's gone, but I do have today. And I'm going to think about the next right thing. Regardless of what happened, my next decision is the most important decision. Whether it's the next meeting, the next conversation, the next workout, the next moment with my kids, being present is worth a lot.
Yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Next, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. I want to talk to you about health, physical health. Obviously, you appear to be a very fit guy. And then I want to talk to you about, faith and family in just a moment. Folks, we're on with Jordan Montgomery. Jordan is a performance coach. He's a keynote speaker. He's an entrepreneur, and he's helping people all over the world essentially get better at whatever it is you're trying to do. We were connected by a mutual friend, and I'm like, I want to have this guy on. I've seen some of his videos. He got me fired up. So he's here today to talk a little bit about, what you can do just by listening to some of the things that he said today, some of the strategies and the tips and the techniques. Again, it's not going to cost you anything. You just need to go ahead and do it. But if you'd like some more information about Jordan, you can go to his website, which is montgomerycompanies.com. You can also check him out on Instagram at Jordan Montgomery. He's very active there. Send him a DM, connect with him as well. Go to his website, take a look at some of his videos. There's some great stuff there that you can learn from just by watching and listening to him. Jordan, so you'd mentioned faith earlier. Tell us a little bit about the role of faith in your life. Now, everyone's faith is not. People have different versions of faith and whatever it is to them. But tell us a little bit about why faith is important to you and why it should be important to everyone.
Well, let me first just say this, Mike. To your point, I am a person of faith. If you're not, I would encourage you to consider faith. And my role is this, Mike. At the end of the day, I believe, and I've got a personal relationship with my maker. I believe in Jesus, right? And I want to live in such a way that compels other people to want to believe in Jesus. And I think too many times Christians, people who identify as Christian, are living in a way that doesn't really want, that doesn't make people want to live or know Jesus. And so, I think the church can be a hard place for people. There's a lot of people that grew up, maybe they were burned by the church or they had a bad experience. And my heart hurts for those people because Jesus came to love and he came to forgive and he came to provide grace. And that's my belief. And, I believe that Jesus was the greatest leader to ever live. And I think there's a lot of people that, they might not even identify as Christian that believe that. He was an amazing person that loved and cared for people in this super radical way. And there's so much that we can learn from him. So he's been present in my life. He's been incredibly active. I think he's active in the lives of many, but I think we have a choice if we want to, choose to believe in him or not. It's everybody's choice. But for me, it's been a choice that's been the best choice. And it's been a choice that's completely changed my life. So I think he's given me a lot. I think he's blessed me with a lot and trusted me with a lot. And I want to live in such a way that allows other people to know him, but also is a response to what, he's given me and entrusted me with.
I had a pastor on. His name was Pastor Keon Henderson. He wrote a book called Shift, and we talked a lot about religion, which a lot of people don't necessarily like to talk about, but we talked about so many different things. And sometimes people get nervous about talking about that particular subject, not me. But for those who aren't necessarily, maybe they're not Christian, maybe they're Muslim, maybe they're Jewish or what have you, but talk about faith in general, not necessarily one particular religion. Talk about the power of faith, because, I'm rereading The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And that book is it's very heavily Christian based, but for those who don't like that type of stuff, I think there's still so much you can get from that book. I've read it several times. Talk about just faith in general and why that's important for one's overall success and also ultimately their happiness.
Well, I think, maybe it was Mahatma Gandhi that said, if you want to find yourself, you got to lose yourself in the service to others. So I think having a bigger vision that goes beyond you pulls you toward other people. It affects your relationships. It affects your attitude. It affects the way that you conduct your business, and it affects your actions. So, I would encourage anybody, step outside yourself, believe in something bigger, right? You are on this planet for a purpose. Your life has meaning. And when you step outside of yourself and you lean into that, I think you become a lot more impactful to the world around you. So I'm trying to chase the version of me that God created me to be. And I would encourage anybody else to do the same. Don't compare yourself to other people, but just think about, hey, my life has meaning and purpose, and I was put on this planet for a reason. And I want to pursue that person that I was created to be. And I think it's important that we all take time to step outside of ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Again, regardless of what belief you have, I think faith is important in whatever it is you believe. And the other F, the other F, family. You're a father of 3. You have a wife. Talk a little bit about the balance. As your career is on the upward trajectory, you've worked really hard to get where you're at today, but we said kind of in the I don't think we're alive, but you're just beginning. Tell us a little bit about being able to balance. I don't necessarily believe that there's true balance, work-life balance, but tell me a little bit about how you do it with 3 kids, 10, 7, and 2. A wife, and building your career and building your brand. What's that like for you? How do you do it? What are some tips and techniques that people should pay attention to?
Well, the very honest answer is a lot of grace and a lot of love.
Sure.
From my kids, from my wife, because I feel every day, and I hate admitting that, but as a father and as a husband, I know I fall short. Sometimes I don't communicate. Sometimes I'm distracted. Sometimes I don't show up the right way. Sometimes I'm not listening. So I've got to work on that, like anybody else, a lot. And I think it's important, if I think about the end of my life, Mike, I want to be respected most by people who know me the best. And if I win the attention of other people or win the praise of other people that I barely know, but I lose the respect of the people closest to me, then that's a pretty big failure. So I'm thinking a lot about, how do I really win in my closest relationships? And as I get older, I think about this idea of going deeper with fewer. Right? Because that's really a path of fulfillment and contentment. And you can still affect a lot of people. I'm not saying don't reach a lot of people, don't impact a lot of people. I'm just saying you can only really give of yourself in a very meaningful way to so many people in this lifetime. And when you try to do too much of that, or when you spread yourself too thin, it leads to a lack of chaos and I think a lack of contentment. And so, my children are 3 of my most important relationships, and my wife, is my most important relationship. And so trying really hard every day to serve those people, to step outside of myself, to be second and put them first. And, on days where I do that, like when I think I've done a decent job of that, usually I'm more content, usually I'm more fulfilled. Usually I'm living a more impactful life. Usually I have a better attitude. It's amazing how it all comes full circle, And when I'm not doing that, if I'm really living for the praise of others, if I'm reaching too far, if I'm really distracted, I'm not as content, and I'm usually stressed out, and I usually struggle with things like comparison, and shame, because those things were never designed to bring us joy and happiness the same way, right? That family and faith were designed to fill us up. And there's a difference between being happy and being fulfilled. So don't get me wrong, dude. Like I'm happy, like being on a stage, like, dude, I'm happy. Like, I think it's the dumbest thing ever when somebody says, well, money doesn't bring you happiness. Like, yeah, it does. Like, I could be happy about making money. What it doesn't bring me is fulfillment. I'm not fulfilled by money. I'm not content by having a lot of money. It can make me happy for a short period of time, but it's fleeting. It goes away. So those are just a few of my thoughts.
That's an interesting distinction. Could you expand a little bit more about the difference between fulfillment and happiness? Because you hear so many people talk about trying to fill that void. And I remember, for those who are listening, have been listening to me for years, they kind of probably know my past. And I remember, when I got that first Lexus, it was the big Lexus sedan, and it was, I think it was like $100,000. And I was so excited. And then when I went there and got it, I felt nothing. And then there was a Rolex that I wanted. And I remember when I bought that thing and I felt nothing. And it was so weird, man. It didn't fulfill me. It didn't bring me happiness. I mean, I like the stuff, but talk about, that the difference between fulfillment and happiness, because I think they overlap and I don't think people necessarily know the distinction.
Well, I think happy is tied to an emotion, and I think fulfillment is tied to contentment. And those two things are different, right? So an emotion is fleeting. Contentment, something that compounds, right? When my daughter gives me a kiss or says, I love you, daddy, there's contentment that comes with that. There's true fulfillment, right? Like, there's no better feeling. And that being a dad.
Yeah, especially from the little girl, man. Yeah, just a small thing. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it just lights you up. Like, right. And there's a compounding effect to that. If somebody puts a really nice steak in front of my face, I can be happy. It can light me up for a moment, but it's fleeting. It goes away. There's not a compounding effect to the steak I just ate. There is a compounding effect when my daughter says, I love you, daddy. There's a relationship being built. There's deeper work being done. My life's purpose is being fulfilled, and so when you're moving in the direction of calling and purpose, there's fulfillment. When you're moving in the direction of things and emotions, there's discontentment over time, right? So I think both are good. I think it's okay to be happy about money and experiencing some success. There's nothing wrong with that. I think we live in a culture that tells us don't be happy over that. Well, who wouldn't be happy stepping on a private jet? Who's not happy winning the lottery? Or, you don't win the lottery and go, well, that really sucked.
Right.
You don't eat your favorite food and go, well, that was awful. No, like it makes you happy. And that's a good thing. It just wasn't designed to fulfill you. And it's short term, and that's okay. And let it be short term.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know we don't have a lot more time left, but before we let you go, is there any last thoughts you would like to leave with our viewers and listeners about some things that, you feel as though is important to them, especially now during the time that we're in? I feel like you were coming out of some stuff, obviously, but is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave our viewers and listeners?
Well, one thing I'd say is this, Mike, because you demonstrated this in our conversation. I think maybe more than ever, when I think about personal development, I think about leadership, and I think about the folks that we're hanging out with today that are listening to the show, I think we all have to work on our self-awareness and our situational awareness, because we live in a sensitive world. There's a lot happening around us. And as people who communicate publicly for a living, I think we're probably, really aware of that. But I could be more aware of that. And I think about the way that you stepped in today's conversation, man. You were prepared. You asked thoughtful questions. While I know you have a lot to say, you were willing to keep the attention on your guests. And it's a microcosm of a greater opportunity, right? It's you've worked at that. You've studied this craft. You stepped in today with great energy. You were excited. You were prepared.
And I brought my glasses.
You brought your sunglasses. Yeah. I mean, dude, you showed up with $17 sunglasses, baby. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, I 17x'd my glasses.
But you were yourself, bro. You were yourself. You were prepared and you were thoughtful and you asked great questions. Imagine if we all showed up that way every day.
Right.
I don't care if you're at your job with your family in a social setting, like, hey, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be thoughtful. I'm going to ask great questions. I'm going to have good energy. like self-awareness is the beginning of personal growth and development. And I just appreciate the way that you showed up today for our conversations. I'm on a lot of shows, and you're one of the better interviewers that I've been around, man. So kudos to you. Keep doing what you're doing. And man, it was a blessing to spend some time with you.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that compliment, and I do love doing it, and I do love having guests like you. Again, folks, we've been on with Jordan Montgomery. He's a performance coach, a keynote speaker, a great father, and we've also learned that he's not perfect, which none of us are. And I just loved his honesty, and I asked some questions, to him about, what happens when you don't, you don't kind of start your day off the way that you're used to, or you've kind of fall off the wagon. Some of the things that I say, that's okay. You just get back at it, and you are self-aware. And so all the gems that he brought with us today are all stuff that we know work. And, and so, go back and listen to it again, and take some notes, and really kind of take stock in some of the things that he said, because his honesty, his candor, and his knowledge are real. And that's why we have people like Jordan on. If you'd like some more information about Jordan, you can go to montgomerycompanies.com. You can also check him out on Instagram at Jordan Montgomery. He also has a podcast called Montgomery Companies. You can just find that as well. And I know it's definitely on Spotify. I think it's on all the other platforms as well. It's really been, a great episode. I really enjoyed connecting with you. Really enjoyed having you on. My name is Michael Alden, and that's Jordan Montgomery, and we'll see you soon. Today's episode is brought to you in part by connectioncapital.com. That's CONNEXTION capital.com. That's CONNEXTION capital.com. You are one connection away from your life changing forever. Have you ever tried to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or even Clubhouse, and you couldn't quite connect with them? That's because the biggest gap in the world is the gap of access. It's not the wealth gap. It's not the credit gap. It's the access gap. Connectioncapital.com is leveling the playing field, and it's free to join. Visit connectioncapital.com, CONNEXTION capital.com. Again, it's CONNEXTION capital.com. You are one connection away from your life changing forever.